This year, Mike Lange, who was play-by-play announcer for the Pittsburgh Penguins for decades, decided to hang up the microphone and retire. He was the voice of the Pens and truly Pittsburgh icon. You know, some time ago, this was right after the Pens had won their very first Stanley Cup against the Minnesota North Stars. Remember that? It was Tommy Barrasso against John Casey. Good stuff. I had the opportunity to get Mike Lange into a studio, and we sat down. We had a great conversation, and I decided, in honor of his retiring today from broadcasting, that we would resurrect that old interview that I did with Mike Lange. So Dave and the crew are busy putting this all together and rearranging it so that we can get it now in digital format for you. I think you will find that all of the things Mike Lange had to say back then still hold true today. So, turn back those clocks to yesteryear, and here is an exclusive interview with Mike Lange. And good evening. Welcome to Portrait on Sports. I'm Fiore, and anyone who is a frequent viewer to Channel 7 here on Adelphia Cable Communications, it's no mystery that I am a very big hockey fan. So it's with great pleasure that I do this show this evening, as our guest is the voice of the Pittsburgh Penguins, Mike Lange. Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Fiore. Nice to be here.
Let's talk in this first segment, Mike, about the Penguins and their capture of the Stanley Cup this season. Perhaps sometimes I tend to get too involved in this thing, so maybe I'm seeing things through a fan's eye, but it seems to me that when the Pens won the Cup, there was what the papers called pandemonium, penguin fever, and it seemed to me anyway that the amount of people that showed up, like the celebration, they got 80,000 down in the park, 20,000 out at the airport. It seems to me that that display of fan support has been a whole lot more than when the Steelers and the Pirates won their championships. Am I looking at it solely through a hockey fan's eyes, or is it just because maybe the city hasn't had a champion in so long?
Well, I came here in 1974, and in '75 the Steelers won the first Super Bowl, and I distinctly, vividly remember the same atmosphere that we had with this situation. The streets were full of people, the parades that were held, it just overwhelmed me, and I remember that so much, and I had that feeling that if it ever happened in Pittsburgh with the Stanley Cup, we'd have the same response, and it even exceeded my expectations. I mean, I was totally amazed at the outpour from everybody, from people, new people that actually got involved in hockey, and it was an unbelievable experience for everybody. It really was.
The Pens win the Cup. I think everybody knows by now they're the first American team to win the Cup in a long. It's been the first All-American Cup in, God, what, 50 years, something like that.
Minnesota played the Islanders in '81. That
in
was
'81, right.
Yeah.
And the first American team to win for a while. It's been dominated by Edmonton and Montreal, Calgary the last couple of years. What do you think the impact will be on hockey, since an American team has won, both locally and nationally?
Well, I think locally, I mean, it's growing like crazy here anyway. The entire tri-state area, from what I understand, there's 4,000 kids now playing organized hockey. They just don't have enough room for all the kids that want to get involved now, and this is going to magnify it even more. There's just a great response, and you know, the hockey now has become a major league sport in this city in all aspects, and I look for it really to grow. As far as the country's concerned, hockey basically is somewhat of a regional sport, but as far as regions as you look at it, Pittsburgh certainly has gone on a high plateau with anybody else in the National Hockey League. We don't have the overall scope that other professional sports have as far as other cities, and just literally it's from geography. We don't have the cities in the southern part of the country, and in that regard. So it's going to grow, and with expansion, maybe on the horizon, we're probably going to see new teams put in. But it was a big shot in the arm, I think, just from the fact that you had two teams that were both considered underdogs getting to the finals, and of course Pittsburgh won it.
So it could be a good marketing ploy then, say for the NHL, the Wheaties box, the trip to the White House, and further boons like that?
You know, I think you have to understand that basically the same thing would have happened if Minnesota had won the Stanley Cup. The atmosphere was right for the underdog team, and it created a lot of interest in the States. Maybe not so much so in Canada, and they were a little disappointed no Canadian team was there. But I think it enhanced the game, and I do think it made it better for everybody. And Hopefully now, if the National Hockey League gets back and readjust its television contract, many more people will get a chance to see teams such as the Penguins during the next few years.
Being as close to the Pens as you are, covering all their games and on both radio and TV, probably you would have the best opinion on them. The Las Vegas odds makers have already established the Penguins as 7-1 favorites to repeat as Stanley Cup champions. I think the past dozen years or so, there's only been 4 different teams to win the Cup, so hockey seems to be a sport that lends itself to dynasties. What's your opinion on the Penguins and their ability to, the 7-1 odds to repeat?
Well, I don't set the odds, but I did see the same article, and they had Boston and Edmonton ahead of the Penguins as far as preseason picks. I can just tell you, I think the Pittsburgh Penguins are a better hockey club than both of those teams. So if you're a wagerer and you want to take a little shot, if that's the odds they're giving you, I think it's worth a small ploy at 7-1 if it does come then.
The Penguins had a rather strange, let's say tumultuous season. Not so much internal strife, but you have a superstar like Lemieux. He goes out for 50 games, and the team still manages to capture their first division title and go on to win the Cup. What would you describe as the main difference between the Penguin team that won without Lemieux and the Penguin team that won with Lemieux?
Well, I really think that the Penguins learned to win without Mario, and I think that was the big factor as far as them getting together. They learned how to win as a team. When Lemieux returned, he even made it a better hockey club, and I think they knew that when they got about a quarter of the way into the season. And a lot of that credit has to go to the coach of the Penguins, Bob Johnson, who did a magnificent job. I mean, I don't. Most people did not expect the Penguins to win the Stanley Cup, but as it moved along and the momentum carried, you had that strong feeling that they were going to have a legitimate shot at doing it. But he really was the guy from day one that really put a lot of positive aspects into the club and his players and got them thinking the same way. They believed in themselves. Without Lemieux, they made a couple of key deals, as we all know, down the stretch, the midway point of the season even too, but they worked it all together, and I think they knew that they could win without Mario, and they were a better club when he came back, and I think that's pretty obvious to everybody.
If he hadn't come back, you think they still could have won the Cup?
I think they had if they made the same deals without Mario, I certainly think that they had a shot at doing it. I really think the Cup was up for grabs this year. I don't think there was a dominant team in the National Hockey League, and I think that proved out with the Penguins winning it. But you know, the thing about Pittsburgh now is once they've had a taste of it and once they've been able to get there and do it, they're going to be a better hockey club just from having accomplished that, and that's going to make them very strong, I believe, for the next few years. And they have the right attitude now and the ability to win and do things. So I look for them to be pretty strong.
Okay, we'll get more into the Penguins' attitude and especially their free agency a little bit. Right now, I still want to stay on the Cup for a little bit. I don't know why. I don't know if this happens in every city. Since this is the first time the Penguins have won the Cup, everything is kind of new. So perhaps they went through the same thing in Boston, or the Rangers, the Islanders, the Flyers. I don't know. But at the beginning of the year, before the first puck was dropped, the Minnesota North Stars were 60. Here we go with the odds again. The Stars were 65-1 chance to reach the Cup. The Pens were 45-1 chance to win to get into the Cup. That's just getting in. That's not winning. I don't know if odds makers can do this or not. I don't know if it's the way they do it. But if you add those two together, you got like a 110-2 chance that those two teams would have made it into the Cup. Were the teams, both Minnesota and the Penguins, in your opinion, were the teams actually that good, but nobody knew, or were there just a whole set of intangibles that occurred during the entire season that thrust them into a position that they probably should not have been in?
Well, the truth of the matter is both Pittsburgh and Minnesota from the second half of the season on were two of the strongest teams in the league in the regular season. And numbers will show you that. Minnesota played extremely well the last part of the season. So did Pittsburgh. They went on to win they were behind and went on to win the Patrick Division. They gained momentum as they went into the month of March. Minnesota gained momentum. And they both kept it going, and that's, I think, the two best clubs at that point reached the finals for the Stanley Cup. You certainly have to think that with Minnesota because they beat Chicago, they beat St. Louis, and they beat the defending Stanley Cup champions, the Edmonton Oilers. Pittsburgh, I really believe, got stronger as every series went on. They had their toughest series of all the playoffs against New Jersey. They gained momentum with that. They lost the first game in every series. They beat Washington. They beat the Boston Bruins, and I think that's where everybody thought it would stop. But they beat them convincingly.
Yeah.
And I knew going into that final series that they had at least the right attitude and the right momentum and the talent to win the Stanley Cup. And I really think the two best clubs for this year got there through the playoff. I mean, you just can't deny the fact that Minnesota accomplished what they accomplished and what Pittsburgh did in its own right. They beat some pretty good hockey clubs to get where they ended up.
Well, you know, a lot of people have said that, at least people I talk to when we talk hockey, and they say, well, yeah, the Pens won the Cup, but look who they played. Now, I pretty much argue on your way, but what's your opinion? Did the Stars really get lucky, or were they really that strong that they could beat somebody like Chicago, St. Louis?
You know, I mean, you're beating the Blackhawks, who had the best regular season record. You beat the Blues, who are 1 point behind them. And Edmonton, talk about a team that knows how to win. They had won the Stanley Cup so many times. Minnesota really had some great accomplishments, and it isn't a fluke when you do it 3 times, believe me. It might be in the first series when you get away with it. You catch teams by surprise. I think Pittsburgh took New Jersey a little lightly, and I have to give New Jersey a lot of credit. They really played a great series. In fact, if that might have been for the Stanley Cup Finals, I mean, New Jersey and Pittsburgh, I would have gone right on edge. I mean, it was that good a series as far as hockey's concerned. But I have all the respect in the world for Minnesota. I know now, and they know now, what it takes to win a Stanley Cup. And it's a hard, grinding, 52-day schedule. We had 24 games in that time. And anybody that can get there and accomplishment certainly deserves to be there, believe me.
Did you think, you had mentioned the Bruins, and I think what you said is true. Everybody was looking at the Pens-Bruins contest as the telltale point. And I probably should point out at this point that on a previous show, we had some people call in and they said they saw me drinking out of a Boston Bruin mug. And I assure you that just had to do with taping dates and did not have to do with any kind of loyalty being thrown to the opposite team. Did you think the Bruins were that strong this year?
Well, I think the Bruins were caught by surprise. I really do. I think the Bruins, after they won their series against Montreal, figured they'd have a pretty easy time against the Patrick Division team. But anybody that followed the Penguins and seen the first 2 series knew that we were on a roll. We had a lot of momentum. And despite the fact that they lost the first game, I still think Pittsburgh was very close to winning that game at a certain point of it. The second game certainly went to the Bruins in overtime. They did a nice comeback to come back, but I think at that point they realized that they were not, they were going to be in for a long series and a tough series. And Pittsburgh, you could see it in the way they played against the Bruins. And again, I go back to the coaching of Bob Johnson. The magnificent game plans that he had, unbelievable in their ability, the entire staff that they worked together with, Scotty Bowman, Pierre McGuire, all of their scouts, the people that looked at those teams. They stuck to that plan. The players really responded well to it, and I think that's in the long run what won them the Stanley Cup.
In the Boston series, they made a big to-do about the collision between Ulf Samuelsson and Cam Neely. In fact, they made such a to-do out of it that it made the NHL's official 1991 Stanley Cup highlight videotape, and it was, it's controversial and all this. Did one hit in one game make the difference of that series?
No, not necessarily, but that one hit led to a lot of other hits that the Penguins put on the Bruins, and they played their game. They were able to catch Boston and play their game physically against them and wear them down and grind them down. Again, I go back through all the series, but you could just see that the Penguins had the better of the play against the Bruins, and they were playing their game, and they took it away from them. And that has been a Bruins trademark for years and years, and the Neely-Samuelsson collision just enhanced it and made it go. But Pittsburgh all of a sudden gained a lot of momentum, and that guy back there had a lot to do with it. And again, there's so many key people that contributed to the Penguins winning the Stanley Cup, but certainly the hit was part of it. And the next series, too, he was part of it when he hit Bellows. It got them, and I mean, frankly, moving on to the Minnesota series, Minnesota hit us much harder in the first 3 games than we did them, and the one hit that Samuelsson had, I think, was overplayed, and the reason it was is because of the fact that he had the collision with Neely in the prior series. So, but again, as I said, Pittsburgh adapted to all situations, and a lot of credit has to go to the people that run the hockey club. They did a magnificent job.
There used to be a time in the NHL when your team could be categorized as one of two things. You were either a hitting team or you were a finesse team. There were no sweeps in the playoffs this year, and anyone who followed the Penguins know that I don't think they had a non-physical series with any of the teams. Everybody they played seemed intent on grinding each other into the ice. Have the days of the finesse hockey clubs, are they pretty much behind us now? Do you have to have that aggressive?
No, I think it's going to be just the opposite. I think you're going more and more finesse. I think you're going the other way. You're going with more speed. You're going to have the hitting. I think eventually in this game, fighting will be eliminated. You're always going to have that, but I think speed is going to be the key part of this game again as it goes. Pittsburgh has a fairly good balance right now in what they have, but they're looking for size and speed, and who isn't in any sport? And I think that's where the Penguins have gone, and I think you'll see a lot of teams now try and copy some of the things that the Penguins have. It's when you succeed as you do, you can't ever forget, though. You can call it finesse, you can call it the physical play, but there's one basic thing that you can't overlook, and that's talent. And if you have talent, you put the horses out there, and the flag goes down, you let them run. And they can run real well, and that Pittsburgh team has a lot of talent on it.
Now, since we brought up the talent, let's move into the move away from the Cup a little bit and talk about the Penguin team as it is now. There are a lot of free agents. It doesn't appear, unless something broke early this morning, that many of them are going to be signed. Any of them may be signed by the deadline. Your opinion on this free agency thing? Do you think there will be a true concentrated effort to sign all of the free agents? Or do you feel that Patrick somehow will use this free agency thing to reshape and give a new look, let's say, to the Gwins next year?
I think you'd have to ask him, I'll be honest with you. I mean, he's the guy that runs the hockey club. I don't do that, and I mean, I think he'll have a concentrated effort to sign the people that are here. You're talking two quality people. I mean, Mark Recchi and Kevin Stevens are the new leaders, if you will, of this hockey club. I really believe that, and they've been guys that have came right to the front during the playoffs and helped carry the team. And so I mean, he's got a lot of work to do. And as far as his ideas and what he wants to do to scope it, I will say one thing, and I know I'm not out of line here. I know in looking at clubs that have succeeded in the past, no matter whether it's hockey, baseball, football, you need to infuse new blood. You need to make people hungry again. And I'm not saying wholesale changes. I'm saying I would expect maybe a couple of changes or somebody new coming into the lineup, because you need to get those people, and you need to have people hungry that want to win a Stanley Cup once again. And we're living on, I mean, this is early, we're just finished with it, but I know the long-range plans are you have to think along those lines, and he's done it. He's done a good job. Their drafting's been superb. Their system, I think, is getting better and better, and they're building not for right now, if you will, but they're building for 5 years even down the road, so they're thinking that far ahead.
The comment was made that with a price increase in the tickets for season ticket holders, that I think DeBartolo Sr. said that everybody would be signed because of the amount of the price hike. But let's talk a little bit about the price hike. With the jump that they've had in season tickets this year, and I know this probably doesn't affect you because you get to go to all the games anyway, but do you feel that somehow hockey, by making these astronomical price hikes, is turning hockey into an elitist type sport?
Well, one of the problems they have is as salaries go up, and they'll go up now again because the players are going to have bargaining a new agreement here coming up. The salaries and things have gone up in the game of hockey, and the owners are willing to afford to pay those salaries. They don't have the revenue television-wise that the other major sports have, and so they have to rely basically on their in-house dollars, and that's one of the reasons why the hockey prices are up there. I hate to see it go as high as it is. I don't think they really want it to go that high. I mean, they want to make it enjoyable and have everybody become involved, but I think that they're trying to make money out of their business too, and make it work. And certainly the atmosphere is right for increases in a way, because the demand is there. It's supply and demand of the hockey ticket. And, there'll be a day if things don't go right where that demand won't be there. And so, I mean, it is that type of business. It's that type of world in everything you do. So I hate to see the prices go as high as they are, but I can see where they're coming from and why they've felt it's necessary to do it. You're going to have a lot of people now starting to make a lot of money in this game.
There seems to be, and perhaps I'm just speaking because
Hell, I'd let them all in free if I had my choice. Believe me, I'd let you all in. I would. Yeah, everybody come to a game. We'll just stagger it, and we'll get 16,000 new ones every night. And we'll all
there's a
have
bunch
fun.
of people going, yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
There seem to be, now I have seats that are in traditionally what they call peanut heaven. I don't know if it's a trend that's going through the entire arena or if it's just in section E28, but there seems to be a prejudice that is growing. During Penguin games this season, you'll see people, there's 3 minutes left in the game, the Pens may be down by 1 goal, and there is a mass exodus to the exit. Even if there's 2 or 3 minutes left in a period, people are getting up and flocking to the stands. And the people, especially that sit in my section in E28, screaming and yelling at you corporate people, why don't you sit and watch the game? There is a seething feeling toward these, what they call the suits up there. Do you see this, or is it just indigenous to E28?
I don't know. I just heard the lines were long at the bathroom, so I don't. I don't. I would say it's a quieter crowd than it has been in years past. That certainly is it. But a lot of people are still basically learning the game. The new people that have come, and hopefully they'll get a little noisy. I like the sound. The players like the sound in the building when people get involved. I don't want us to become an Edmonton or Vancouver or a quiet city. I want us to be a part of it, and I think especially in the playoffs we saw a lot of that. But we can do even more. We can have some fun out there. We really can. But be good.
And we'll continue. Find out a little bit more about Mike Lange, the man, when Portrait on Sports continues right after this.
Almost gave it away to Joey Mullen. It does come to the blue line. Mullen turns it on the left side. Bork walks right in. Bork is a man in front. Can he get it to him? It's Francis. Goes around behind the net. Bork now to Mullen. Shooting, scoring! Penguins lead 1-0 on a goal by Joey Mullen. A call, Arnold Slick from Turtle Creek. Penguins have the lead.
Challenges and rewards. The Army National Guard offers you both. The challenge to discover how good you really are. And the rewards of accomplishment. Rewards that start paying off from the day you join your hometown National Guard. You could qualify for an enlistment bonus of up to $2,000. So you can get the things you want fast. Discover how good you really are. Ride with your hometown Army National Guard. Let the Guard bring out the best in you. The Army National Guard. Americans at their best.
Welcome back to Portrait on Sports. I'm Fiore, and our guest this evening is Mike Lange, voice of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Mike, let's talk a little bit about you and your broadcasting career. Was it always hockey that you wanted to get into, or was there another form of broadcasting, say news or just sports in general, that struck your fancy?
Well, I really didn't have too much familiarity with hockey when I grew up. I grew up in California, and frankly, I didn't see a hockey game till I was 20 years old. And I had a dream when I was a young kid what I wanted to do. I wanted to work baseball is what I wanted to do from the time I was 10 years old. And so I tried to accomplish that. I went to school, and in the last 2 years of college, I was fortunate enough to do baseball, football, and basketball, broadcast on the local station there. And a fellow that I had known from the same department was from the Bay Area, and he had been involved with the Oakland Seals, who were in the National Hockey League. And he said, "You got to come out and see this game of hockey." And I said, I don't need to see hockey. I don't know anything about a red line, a blue line, or anything like that. He said, "You got to come out." So they had an amateur league there in Sacramento. And I went out, and they had a small rink, and they had 4 players plus a goaltender. And I said, you know, I'm going to give myself a shot here, because if I am going to do sports along the way, I got to know all the sports. I've got to try and learn. So I went to work. I learned. I was a penalty timekeeper. I worked on the Zamboni. We put players on either side of the Zamboni. When the time was up, I'd shoot them out. And so I kind of learned the game from that. And they actually had a guy up in the thing, the PA announcer, unique and different thing. They actually did play-by-play in the building while the game was going on. And this fellow got $5 a game, and he wanted 10 from the association, and they told him that we can't afford to pay you that, and he took his hat and went out the door, and they asked me if I'd do it, and I ended up doing that. I did the play-by-play, actually, of hockey inside the building while the game was going on with 400 or 500 people in the building. And from that, we did some tapes. We did some playoff games for public radio, and I kept the tapes.
Oh.
And it's what transpired and what I worked with, and I ended up my first job working in Phoenix, Arizona. But that's basically how I got involved in the game of hockey. And then the other sports, I really thought for sure that I would be definitely involved in baseball or basketball. I mean, that was something that I really wanted, and lo and behold, I mean, fate takes care of you sometimes, and that's where it ended up for me.
Now, were these the same Oakland Seals that wore the green and gold
Yeah.
uniforms years ago?
Yeah.
As the first hockey game I saw were the Penguins and the California Golden Seals way back when.
Yeah,
It
it
was
certainly
3-3
was.
tie is what it turned out to be.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a good idea, doing play-by-play inside the arena?
Not really, but it was something that was unique and all in itself. It's the only time I've ever seen it, and probably the last time. I left. I don't think they kept it going, but.
Well, you know, there are a lot of fans that wear those Walkmans into the Civic Arena to catch your play-by-play, even though they're sitting there watching it.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking actual John Barbaro public address announcer doing the game as it goes along. We didn't have any radio, so they couldn't wear Walkmans. Maybe we were ahead of our time. That might have been it. We were ahead of our time.
Do you still have a longing somewhere inside you to go to baseball?
Not really. I've done baseball. I did a couple of years here with the Pirates on the KBL Sports Network, and I enjoyed that thoroughly. It was something that I wanted to do and did enjoy it. And the people that I worked with were excellent. Steve Blass, who's still with the Pirates, and I are very close friends, and we had a whole lot of fun. It was not work for us, and really this business for me is not like that. It's just something I enjoy doing, and that I did. And now I'm really hopeful for the people that I knew. I mean, this is '86 when I went there. Jim Leland, Tommy Sant, Rich Donnelly, all these people that have been involved from the start. I'm just hoping that they can achieve their goals and win the World Series, because they've got a good ball club and they've got great people over there. Baseball's fun.
After you've done so many years of hockey, do you find that switching to and you had a good number of years doing Penguin hockey before you hooked up with the Buccos, did you find the game a little too slow for you at points?
Not from a broadcast standpoint, because your concentration's the key to working, and you have to be very involved, and you have to have that high in concentration where you have to know everything that's going on at all times. Baseball or hockey, if you don't keep that level, you can't do the job the way you have to do it. So that actually helped me. Broadcasting baseball makes it even better for me because I'm involved in every minute of it. At times when I go to games and I sit, and I'm like the average person too, I'm waiting for something to happen at times. But when you're broadcasting it, that really pulls you much closer into it, and you think ahead is what you learn to do. You start thinking ahead on what possibly might happen, and that's the real fun of it when you start working like that.
For you, which is more challenging to do?
Oh, they're both challenging. I'm not saying they're a piece of cake, but they're both challenging. I mean, it's something that you strive to be very good at it, and you have to work at it. And from that standpoint, I enjoy all of them. Like I told you, I've done other sports too. I've done soccer. I went out and learned soccer, and I did basketball, and I try and keep the same level of intensity for all the sports that I work. And there's a difference. I mean, hockey's a different broadcast sport. It's a faster paced, higher pitched, and baseball's different, but you still have to find that comfortable spot where you can make it happen the way you want to make it happen.
Was there a sport you did that you said to yourself, boy, I'll never do this one again?
No, I haven't reached that. I will say the toughest job I ever had, though, was doing soccer on radio. That's a very difficult thing to do. That's not too easy. That was, especially in a lot of 1-0, 0-0 games. But I did it. As my buddy Cope says, I swum it, didn't I? I did it.
Let's talk a little bit. Let's go back into hockey here and talk about what do you do personally to prepare yourself before a Penguin broadcast?
Well, I don't know if anybody's any different. I mean, I'm with the team constantly, and I'm around them, and we travel, and so I pick up a lot of things from that. But an actual game day is, they will have a morning skate, and I'll go down the morning of the skate and spend time there with both Pittsburgh and the opposing team, and talk to writers, talk to players, talk to broadcasters, get the notes that I need from the people there involved, and get back, have a little lunch, get prepared, and then come back to the arena about 4:30 and finish up. You know, that's work from that time until we finish up around 10:30 or 11. So I split the day up, and it's nice to be able to do that. I split it up and go home and write down what I want to work with that night, and then I even do it more so when I get to the arena. Put together an actual score sheet with notes that I want to work with, and that's how we do it.
So you keep your own tallies on all the games instead of using the stat man?
I don't have time. I don't mean this degrading. I don't have time for a stat man in hockey. I have to be there myself. I have to. The game's too fast to be waiting for somebody to tell you what happened. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, if I don't do it, it's going to get done too late for me to be comfortable with it. So I actually prefer not to really work with a stat man. The reason we have them occasionally is from a television standpoint. They will enhance it, but as far as actually getting things, that's my responsibility, and I've got to make it work. And I've used that, and that's radio training, really, basically, is what it is, believe it or not, because when you start off in this business and you do everything, you are the engineer, you are the radio, you're the broadcaster, you're the color man, you do just about everything, and you learn to do that, and it's hard to break your ways away from it, and actually it helps you because it makes you concentrate so much and get the job done.
What happens if you have a game, and I'm sure this happens to you, it probably happens to all broadcasters, I don't know anyone that's exempt. If you are, my apologies, but you're doing a game and for some reason the jaw, the mouth, the lips, they're not in sync. They're just going all kind of ways, and you're just fumbling over yourself. You just try to put in a layman's act in doing it, or do you have any little broadcasting tricks that you try to pull out of your sleeve?
No, it happens. Believe me, it happens. I mean, I've got to the point where I've tried to talk, and they just won't come out. And so what I try and do then in that situation, I either try and laugh real hard with it myself, and you have to make fun of it, and if you are making mistakes, then you have to play off of that. At least I do. Or you have to, when you get that commercial break, you got to you just turn with inside yourself and you say, it's time to go to work now. I mean, you got to try and correct it if you can. But there are nights when nothing comes out right, and it just seems to progress and get worse and worse as it goes. And you just put that one in the hopper and say, forget about it. And there are the nights when you go to the rink, when you're there and you don't feel right, and all of a sudden within 2 minutes, bang, everything is there, and you have everything goes right for you. So. I don't have the answer, the magic formula, when it all goes right every time. If I did, I guess I'd package it, but it's the same with anybody and anything they do in their life. There are good days and bad days.
There's a known fact going around the world nowadays, since it was brought up in so many post-game interviews, that hockey players are very, very superstitious. In fact, every hockey player you talk to says that hockey players are the most superstitious lot of all athletes. Well, that's debatable. But does it apply to hockey announcers? Are you superstitious?
No, the only thing I'm superstitious about is getting to the... I've had dreams awaken in the afternoon and think that I've missed the bus or I missed the taxi to get there. That happens to you. But I really don't have any superstitions. I got to be there for sure before 7:35 when they drop the puck.
And no pregame rituals.
That's right. I really don't. I do my notes at certain times, but I don't. Nothing's concrete and set in what I do. Probably the most I don't know if it's superstitious, but the thing that I do when I talked about the game day that I talked about you too, it's more of a ritual than anything else, and it's been there for 20 years. That type of thing, especially at home. You don't get as much of it on the road, but. Where you go down and again breaks the day up, and you go down to the rink and you gather a lot of things that you want to use for that night. That's probably as superstitious as I get, wanting to do that, especially at home.
Let's talk a little bit about your style and delivery of play-by-play. I think everybody who sees you probably, in fact, I once said this to somebody and they looked at me funny, but I think even with the Pens winning the Cup, if you walked up to the average person in the street and played word association, give me 5 names. When I say Penguins, naturally you're going to get Lemieux and Coffey and Barrasso, and I think you would probably be one of the 5 that was listed in there. Your sayings, your phrase, your terminology has become just as part of the team as the black and gold has. Tell us a story about how that all started. You were, you mentioned earlier, you were doing announcing in Phoenix, and it actually started with the man you were working with, and you had to ask him permission to use the phrase or something on that?
Well, I first started in Phoenix, and I worked for the Western Hockey League team there, the Phoenix Roadrunners, and the fellow there that I work with, I did color commentary with him for 1 year, was a man named Al McCoy, who now is the broadcaster for the Phoenix Suns and has been since 73 or 72. And he used the phrase "Great Balls of Fire" with a couple of other ones that he used. And when he left the Roadrunners, he had become such a part of him that I was really hesitant to even ask him if I could use it. And I asked him, and he said, "I'm not using it for basketball. It's all yours." And he kind of gets, you know, it's like a hand-me-down. Well, he's a very close friend, and he's a tremendous person, and I really respected the fact that he even let me do that. And I added to that, and the truth is, too, that going back to college days, I used some phrases. I had grown up around the Bay Area, or listening to the broadcasters there with Bill King, who still is one of my favorite broadcasters of all time, and he used phrases and things like that when he used to do the Oakland Raiders, the beloved Oakland Raiders, right, folks, and the San Francisco Warriors, and that's dating myself a little bit, in the NBA, and so I picked up an awful lot from him, especially style. And then this fellow Al McCoy was more of a rapid-paced type of guy that I marveled at and really respected, and kind of combined those two. So I had used some phrases before, and then again, as I said, the Great Balls of Fire came from that. I built it up with a couple of phrases there. I went on to San Diego, added one, and when I came to Pittsburgh, I had 2 or 3, and that was basically it. And then we just kind of grew with it. Everything just kind of took off. I don't know how it did it or what happened, but it's been kind of my fun with the fans, and the fans' fun with me, is the way we've kind of worked it. And I pick them up in the strangest places where I hear them and do get the phrases, but.
Where do most of them come from?
The people, really. I just listen to people. They'll give you all you want, believe me. They say that they say kids say the darndest things. No, they do, but so do people, and you'd be surprised what you hear. Yeah, and people say things at times they don't even realize what they said. I mean, an example: the Michael motorcycle thing really came from a fellow who was leaving a place, and he was a Texan, and he was just being congenial, and I'd known him for a couple of months, and he just said to me, "I'll see you later, Michael motorcycle," in that southern drawl, and I said, "Thank you." Thanks.
Just took it from him
I
there.
said, "Thank you." I said, "You just gave me a great one." And he never knew it, and he walked right out the door.
If you're doing a game and you say something like, Lemieux comes down on left wing, he shoots, he scores, and that's all you say, do you feel you've let the fans down?
Oh, if it's a 9-0 game, I don't let them down. I can't. I mean, if we're behind 9-0 and that's our only goal, let's just get out of there and go home. I mean, I know the fans are feeling the same way too, because everybody has those games also. So I'm not going to. I mean, it'd be ridiculous for me to overemphasize or come on in a situation like that. But I know the fans are out there, and I know they're listening, and for the most part, I mean, I've used the phrases after every goal, so it's a rare time that I don't use one, let's put it that way.
Do you feel any pressure, say at the beginning of each season, especially maybe come October, since we can now say defending Stanley Cup champs, do you feel any pressure to create or come up with new phrases each season?
Yeah, and you better stop pressuring me, because I'm tired of the pressure. No, there's so many things out there I can come up with. I still have a little reservoir, but I don't want to overdo it, is what I'm telling you. Don't want to overdo and get too many. You can't add too many. You have to kind of search them out now, and I think I'll have more than enough to look through before
Do you remember these things, or do you write them down on a paper and say, well, I did this one, I did that one?
I write them down. I write them down, yeah.
Can we get any previews on what we might expect this coming season?
Not at all.
Oh, no previews.
No fun. That's no fun. Then it won't be any, it won't be something new to you if I give it to you now. So we'll add probably 1 next year. Maybe 2.
No
maybe
hints.
3. No.
All right. We'll let you slide on that. Maybe I was the only one that noticed this. And possibly, Mike, it didn't bother you at all, but I noticed it, and to be quite frank with you, I felt slighted about it. I mean, I wasn't involved in it, and I felt slighted about it. For my section there over in E28, I can see you guys perfectly when you're doing the games, whether they're on radio or TV. And you got a nice little niche up there. Then all of a sudden the Pens get into the Cup. In come, for lack of a better phrase, the big boys from Sports Channel America, and bang, they bump you up, and you're sitting on top of it. If you'd got any closer to the roof, you'd have been outside the thing. Is it just me that got irked over that, or did that kind of set you off as well?
No, really, actually, we requested to go up there. There's more room up there. There's a lot more room to work with, and we do radio and television together, and we need that space. And that's one of the reasons why we moved to the top level. It is further away, and it's a different angle, and I prefer to be down there if we had the room to work with in the press box, down on the first row level where we used to be at all the time. But that's just not the way it is. So we work with what you have, and I'm grateful we were able to get a little more space to work with, because, as I said, we combine a lot of things for one telecast and or radio broadcast when they work together, and we need that room, and you learn to live with it when you can get, be that high if you can get the room to work with.
When you're doing a game, is there a tendency to perhaps they don't what's the word I'm looking for? You don't get everything that possibly you could get in preparation and location for your broadcast, because you're the local announcer rather than the...
Yeah, it does happen, certainly. We were in instances on the playoffs, when you get to a 5 television TV feed thing. We were in Boston. We were number 5 on the totem pole, which means we're way down. And we sat actually in the crowd, and I had people right next to me when I worked. I mean, they were right there on my shoulder, and they were cheering and clapping. I mean, that was just part of it. And you learn to live with that. And in our own building, even, that because of the networks being involved, we were fourth on the totem pole. But that really didn't affect our location. So you learn to work within what you have, and I've been in a lot worse situations than this year. I mean, the Rangers a few years ago put us right in the stands, about 20 rows up behind a 300-pound cameraman who was directly in front of us, and I literally, I mean, at times I couldn't see anything in the game, and we did 2 games there. That had to be as bad a location as I've ever had to work with, but we survived it.
Mike, in a situation like that where you are the low man on the totem pole, but still you got to put out a product, does it pay for you in that instance to maybe play the squeaky wheel and try to get the oil and go down there and make a fuss, or you better just being quiet and take?
Well, you don't have the problem is just location, room. You don't have any more room. The arenas are not built to have 5 or 7 TV feeds out of them, and so you have to adjust. It's like the All-Star game or any major event. You have to. They had to adjust taking seats in the actual arena to put journalists and people to cover the game in the game. So on a regular season basis, you don't run into that problem. But when you reach that level, you are going to have a lot more people interested and a lot more people there, and everybody's aware of that. And hey, you can live with that any time as long as you're playing in that type of game. When you get to the finals or you get to the semifinals, you want to be there. You don't care what the situation is. You want to be there.
We'll talk more about Mike Lange and the profession of broadcasting, especially broadcasting the Pittsburgh Penguins, when Portrait on Sports continues right after this.
He won the faceoff from him, gets the puck now in the far corner, trying to swing it over to Ropeman. He's got an open man on the left side, Bork, now to Lemieux. Ariel pulls back left side, over to Brecky. He's wide open, put it in front here, Stevens, shooting, scoring! Kevin Stevens on the power play, and the Penguins have a 2-1 lead. Oh, I'll be cow kick. What a pretty passing play by the Penguins. Lemieux, Recchi, and then Kevin Stevens.
Great victories and several championships. But an even bigger battle is still going on, and I'm not talking about football. Drugs and alcohol run rampant through America's youth, leaving you dependent, destroyed, and eventually resulting in a tragic death. Don't be disillusioned. There is no such thing as a good drug addiction. Please learn to make good choices for yourself. Respect your body and mind. We must win this battle against drugs and alcohol. Just say no.
Yager, wheel and deal again, shoots it right on, and Moog will make the save, and Loney runs into Andy Moog. Now Loney is hammered by Lazaro, and here we go. Lazaro put the stick right into Loney after they battled. Somebody got a first crack at Loney, and then Lazaro came in and gave him another shot.
Back with you here on Portrait on Sports. Our guest is Mike Lange. And Mike, we were talking before the break about tricks of the trade, if you will, about the broadcasting hockey games and what have you. Let me ask you a question, since you are in essence a true broadcaster. You had your start with radio, you did all kinds of sports as you mentioned and came up. What do you feel, what's your personal opinion on people who are ex-players and taking a 6-week Columbia crash course, and then all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're thrown into a booth? Do you think something like that is viable, or do you think it should be left to the professionals?
Well, my own personal opinion is I think they should, I'm not saying everybody has to literally pay his dues for 5 years or somewhere, but they need to get the experience. They need to have that experience to work with it. Being a color commentator is much different than doing play-by-play, but a lot of times you'll find people thrown into that situation. They can't handle it, and you see them weed through it. I mean, they go through it. A lot of people that you thought would be fairly good, they last a couple of months, or they take 2 or 3 auditions, and people just don't feel they're qualified to do it. But I would like to see more from an educational standpoint. The actual people have to put some work into it to learn everything about it, and I think that'll would make them a better broadcaster overall to do their job. I mean, you're talking very limited. You know, I mean, from a network standpoint, there just aren't that many openings and people like that. But people that you know, for example, Dan Deerdorf is a guy that I admire and have a great respect for. Dan Deerdorf, while he was playing, worked for KMOX Radio in St. Louis, got his feet wet, learned, actually did color for hockey, did some other things there, did news, sportscast, and he literally learned the business from the way up. And I think that's made him a much better broadcaster. And I think that people that watch those games can see how well he adapts to the situations. And he seems to be looser. He seems to be in command of himself, and I think that a lot of that has to do with his actual background in picking up things from the actual experience he had in the business.
Do you think the fans need to see an ex-player? Do you think it hurts you at all not having an ex-player as a partner?
No, not really. I don't feel that at all. I really think that people can learn on a level and have an understanding of it, maybe more so than what a player would have, because he's taken in all aspects of it. And I think that I know the game not on the level of a coach or not on the level of that, but I didn't see a hockey game, as I told you, till I was 20, and now all the coaches and people and things say, well, you didn't know anything about hockey, so there you go. But you can learn it, and you learn to get a feel for it, and people are willing to teach you, and if you're willing to listen, you can learn a lot about the game.
A while back, you had said that in a broadcasting hockey standpoint only, that your ambition was to see the Pens beat Philly in the Spectrum. They did that. Then you said your ambition was to announce the Pens in the Cup. They've done that. So what's your ambition now?
You mean it's all over? No, I don't know. I don't know. I'd like to see them continue it. I'd like to put a few more cups up on the mantle. I would like to see them do that. Be a very strong team for the 90s. It is a great accomplishment, and I mean, it's something I really look forward to winning the Stanley Cup, and I know the players did too. When you put as much of your life into it and trying to make it successful and the franchise successful as I think I have, it's a great reward. And who knows, maybe there'll be something else on the horizon that I want to accomplish besides hockey, besides broadcasting.
Do you feel there's any need now that the Pens have won the Cup to move on to something different?
You never know. I mean, people change in their lives, and I'm not going to discount it and say that I'm going to be doing hockey the rest of my life. I certainly enjoy it, and I think if it was not fun for me and I didn't enjoy it, then I tell young people, if the job is using you, then it's time to move on. If you're using the job to better yourself and you enjoy it, then you're in the right place at the right time. So, and I'll use that philosophy within myself, and right now I'm enjoying the job, and I love doing it, so I'm happy.
There were some rumors that circulated. Let me ask you about them now. They had you...
No.
Not true? So you're not heading back out to the West Coast?
No, I mean, rumors come up. Things will come up all the time, and I'd certainly. I mean, you have to entertain thoughts in this business, or situations. But I really, at this moment, I mean, I like Pittsburgh. I love the city. I love the people, and I've grown with the city and been a part of it, and I think that they feel somewhat the same way. And right now, I'm not going anywhere.
Let's talk a little bit about your living in the city. I don't think it's any big secret that you make your home here in Mount Lebanon, and we're televising into Mount Lebanon. What is it about the South Hills in general and Mount Lebanon in particular that it attracts you to stay here?
Oh, high taxes, of course. I don't know. It just happened. I mean, that's where I ended up. Actually, I was in Bethel Park. When I first came here, I was in Mount Washington. And then I moved to Bethel Park, and so I'm covering all your area now.
Yeah, you sure are.
And then I moved to Mount Lebanon, and we stayed there, actually rented a house and ended up buying the house. I mean, I certainly at that time didn't choose exactly where I was going to live, and it was a friend who wanted to move into a new house, and we told them, well, we'd rent their house, and if they had an offer, which they hadn't had on the house, that I would match the offer. And of course they hadn't sold the house for a year, and 1 week after I moved in they had an offer on the house, so we bought the house. And we've been very happy with it, and I enjoy it very much in Mount Lebanon.
My next question was going to be what are the drawbacks, but that would be the same answer, the high taxes, right? So
No, there's no drawbacks. No.
I'll skip right over that one. Since you live in Mount Lebanon has a rather successful hockey program, especially on the high school level. What are your opinions of the Mount Lebanon Blue Devils, who, by the way, not to plug, are televised right here on Channel 7?
Yeah, I know. I think they're great. I think they might win it all. Bethel Park will be right there with them, too. I got to give equal time to everybody. They're going to be good. I'll tell you what, there's a lot of kids playing hockey, and everybody knows that. And these two areas in Upper St. Clair, they're going to be some strong teams in the coming years. And I know from the kids, I have a boy 9 years old, and they're very much involved in hockey, baseball, and soccer, which is very big in the entire area. So they have some tremendous programs, and really make everybody in the community involved. And I'm very thankful, really, to be in the area.
Outside of coming here and baking under these lights, what do you do in the off season?
Oh, I relax. I just take it easy. As I said, I have a 9-year-old son now, and he's playing a lot of baseball, and I enjoy being with him. And in the winter months, it's hard for me to spend as much time as I want with him. And we enjoy it, and I'll travel a little bit and get away. And so I have some other interests that I work with business-wise, which really isn't anything that I do or sell or work with in the area, but I have some other investments that I like to become very much involved with. So I fill the time, and I enjoy the summer.
As the announcer for the Penguins, do you feel personally that it's good for you to get friendly and get on a personal level with each of the players, all of the players, or do you feel that perhaps you should keep a little bit of your distance and not get too involved, say, with the team?
Well, it's impossible not to become involved with them. I mean, you are basically part of that team. You're with them every day. You travel with them. You're constantly getting information from them and trying to make it work. Yeah, you're very much involved, and you learn to you get to know the families, and it's impossible not to be involved with them. And you root for them. I mean, I'm not going to kid anybody. You want them to win. I mean, you want to see the satisfaction for all the hard work that they put into it come all together. And it was such a great feeling to see everybody, even new players, how it just exploded and everybody worked together and wanted to win for one another. And that's a great feeling. It really is.
The NHL is changing next season. And right after this break, we'll find out Mike Lange's opinions on those changes when Portrait on Sports continues right after this.
Murphy's alone at the right point. Instead he goes near side to John Cullen. Cullen moves in, got a man in front, Stevens. He shoots and scores, Kevin Stevens. And the Penguins get on the board to make it 2-1. And you ain't nothing but a hound dog. And somebody's got another $100 and a big winner of the hot shot contest. See, I knew who to pick.
Back with you here on Portrait on Sports, and our guest is Mike Lange. Mike, let's talk a little bit about hockey. It's going to change next year. There have been some big rule changes just announced this week, and perhaps we're dating this taping date, but I guess the biggest one is the use of instant replay. What are your feelings on instant replay in the NHL?
Oh, I don't know if I don't know how well it's going to work. They apparently have put a lot of thought and things into this. They're going to put a limit, from what I understand, of 2 minutes on disputed calls. The only thing I can say is that in situations where we have even one thing go wrong with a clock, I've seen delays of 8 to 10 to 12 minutes, and the only thing I'm worried about is that this 2-minute limit or whatever they're trying to do just won't be able to be enforced, and you're going to have possibly long delays. But I really don't know enough about the whole rule as it's done. They really feel that they need it now, and I think that kind of tells me they're going to keep the one referee system, definitely. So they feel maybe this is an added thing that they can work with without having other people involved.
And that was one of the things that you kind of wanted to see changed, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it? Or,
Well,
or at least let the offensive linemen, let the linemen be able to call some penalties as well.
Well, I really think we can work within a two-referee system. I really do. I mean, basketball now has 3. Their contention is, well, you've got 2 different referees, and how do you know how they're going to call? Well, you know, I mean, if they work enough together, they're going to have an idea of how they work, and I think it makes it better. The game's faster, the players are bigger, they're stronger, and I think you need another set of eyes to maybe help and be able to call things along the course of a game.
One of the other changes they're making is the change of the nets. They're going back to the plastic tearaways. What's your opinion on that, and do you think that it's going to change drastically the play, especially if some key players like Kevin Stevens?
Well, you don't know until they go in there. You won't know until how of the force if the net does come off. It will definitely change a game again if those nets will not move, or if they're very hard to get out of there, because a player takes a risk when he goes to the net. He really does. I mean, those posts, for the most part, for years, they never moved, and you can be injured severely by going in there. Now, they're unabashed. They go in. There were no rules concerning the goaltender, basically, although they'll tell you there were interference. So we saw it maybe called 3 times the whole year, if that. So that goaltender has to be protected. I mean, they're not all the size of Tom Barrasso, and literally beat up in that net a mule at times, and it's not easy for him. And the players knowing that, and they're going to take advantage of any edge that they can get, and they have for years, and the Penguins certainly fit right in that mold too. They've been in there to abuse it, if you will, and work with it, and I think it's good for the game to clean that up and get. Now they're going to start calling penalties for being in the crease more. We'll see if they're enforced. I've seen new rules from the league before. They last about a month, and then it goes on down as they try to adjust, and you don't see it called as much anymore. But we'll see what happens.
Do you think these rules, and specifically let's address the one that we didn't touch on, the reduction from 18 to 17 players, do you think they're going to, in a general sense, help the hockey league next year? Or?
Well, I don't know. You know, there's 2 different ways to look at that. One, they want to try and get the big tough guy maybe not to be a part of the team or have to carry that player as the 18th. There's a financial standpoint, not carrying as many people on the roster because the salaries have gone so high. I'm not sure really what they're thinking is why not to have 18 players and 2 goaltenders. It's a pretty good balance when you have 18. You can run 4 lines and you know, in full, and you can run 6 defensemen basically, which most teams do. But now you're going to see a different situation because you'll have 3 lines plus two players, and the game, you know, to be honest about it, is becoming more specialized. We're going to see very much in the near future, we're going to see people on the power play, specialty only at times, penalty killers, people that do that only for a job. You're going to see more and more of that, I think, as the game of hockey gets to a higher level.
The other thing that's happening in the NHL is expansion. And I want to show you folks this because this may be the first and only time you get the opportunity to see one of these on Pittsburgh television. That is the official logo and color scheme of the Tampa Bay Lightning. There it is, gang. And it may not happen at all. The 2 teams, the Ottawa Senators and the Tampa Bay Lightning, are having a little bit of problem coming up with some of the money that they needed. Give me your opinion first on expansion. Do you think it's good in the NHL now, or do you think it'll dilute the product? And then let me know if you think the NHL should take a hard core with this team and really have them cough it up, or if they should be a little lenient and go with expansion at all costs.
Well, I mean, they set the rules, the league did. I don't see them changing that. I mean, they want the money in the coffers before it starts, and if they did change that, it would be, you know, anybody could come into the situation. So they have to draw some hard and fast rules, I believe, with them. You know, it was a very high, stiff figure of $50 million to come into the league. A lot of people, to be honest about it, don't think it's worth that. And people backed out in situations. But those 2 franchises committed to it, whether they can come through with it and finish it up. And they also have season ticket guarantees, some very hard and stringent rules. And I don't see the National Hockey League backing off of that situation. So you you may have a collector's item. I don't know.
And do you think the time is ripe for expansion, or do you think?
I could really, if it's done well, any time is right for it, especially now. I would like to see more teams in the States, more in the. I would, I consider going to Atlanta. I consider another team in Florida. I consider a team in Texas. I think we need, if we're going to make this a major league sport in all this country, which that's something I would love to see happen. We've got to get out and start going other places. And the game will sell itself. The game is there if you get it out in front of people. And I think we've got to see a lot more American cities involved.
Mike, I'd like to thank you very much for stopping by the studio today. I could talk hockey all day. I guess everybody pretty much knows that by now, and I appreciate you taking out the time and spending some time with us.
Well, I appreciate it.
That's Portrait on Sports. Our guest has been Mike Lange. Until next time, I'm Fiore. Good evening.
So even through all those years, you can still see, according to Mike, it's a great day for hockey. Michael Motorcycle, thank you, sir, for your years as play-by-play announcer for the Pens. It was a pleasure.